Hello there everyone, welcome back to Press for Truth TV. Today is Thursday, November the 1st, 2012, and there's a rather controversial bill which is getting a lot of attention today. This of course is Bill C-309, which just passed the House. It was voted on in Parliament and is now on its way to the Senate and may soon become an actual law. And this is the bill that would seek to make it illegal for anyone to wear a mask during an unlawful assembly. Now, I have serious issues with this bill that may potentially soon become law because there's such a huge gray area here in regards to what constitutes a mask and what are the purposes for people wanting to conceal their identity at a protest. It obviously begs the question, is makeup going to be considered a mask? Would wearing a scarf in the dead of winter here at a Canadian winter protest, would that be considered wearing a mask? And of course, we have to wonder, what are the intentions of people who go to protests and want to conceal their identity? It doesn't necessarily mean that they're looking to engage in criminal activity. Sometimes people want to remain anonymous, and there's many reasons for that. Of course, we know the police often use their facial recognition systems at these protests, where they now have the ability to scan a crowd of thousands of people and scan all the faces and track them, put them in the database, so they can keep track of every single person who attends these protests. And let's not forget that the police will often use chemical agents and chemically attack the crowds with pepper spray and tear gas. And folks, I've been sprayed by pepper spray before. I've been tear gassed. It is not a pleasant experience at all. And a lot of times people will take precautionary measures by wearing goggles or perhaps wearing a bandana. Sometimes if you soak a rag or a bandana in vinegar, place that over your face, it will diffuse some of the tear gas to some extent. So a lot of people who choose to conceal their identity and remain anonymous are doing it to stay away from the database, the facial recognition systems, and potentially to protect themselves from these chemical agents that the police often use. And let's not forget that the Canadian government has a history of trying to shut down peaceful protests and using any means necessary to do so. Many of us remember the now infamous case in 2007 in Montebello, Quebec, where 3 police officers were dressed up as protesters with masks, with rocks in their hands, and they were provocateuring. They were trying to incite violence in order to generate the excuse for the police to clamp down on the whole protest and shut it down, basically. And when this story broke, the Quebec police ended up admitting to it and saying, yes, these guys were our officers, but they weren't provocateuring. But it begs the question, well, what about the rock in the hand? And they claim that that was just a part of the costume. But there is footage of this police officer hitting one of the shields of the riot cops, which is an act of provocation. So the Canadian government's been caught red-handed before, trying to illegally generate the excuse to shut down a protest. Well, now they have the nerve to actually put pen to paper and turn this into a law. And the reason why I have such an issue with it is because it's going to open up the door for the police to shut down just about any protest they want. You can picture a few hundred people at a peaceful rally, a peaceful protest. Well, under this bill, all it would take is for one idiot in the crowd, whether it's a provocateur or not, to throw something at the police or engage in that kind of activity, and all of a sudden they can declare the entire thing an unlawful assembly, and they can come in and arrest anyone who has concealed their identity, and these people may soon face jail time or be fined. So I think this is absolutely ridiculous. And here's an article I found today from the Globe and Mail that I'd like to share with you. It says Ottawa's new law banning masks goes too far. The Harper government Wednesday used its majority to adopt Bill C-309, a private member's bill that would make it a crime to be present at a riot or unlawful gathering while wearing a mask or other disguise to conceal one's identity. Now awaiting Senate approval, the bill, which would also make it a crime to incite a riot while wearing a disguise, is an understandable reaction to the frustration of seeing masked criminals looting stores and destroying cars during the Stanley Cup riot in Vancouver, or to watching pseudo-anarchists in black balaclavas systematically smash the windows of banks and coffee shops during the G20 riots in Toronto. But as a response to our outrage, it is problematic by targeting a small group of troublemakers whose problems go far beyond wearing masks. Bill C-309 unfairly paints a much larger group with the same brush and creates the potential for abuse. Canadians have the right to demonstrate peacefully, and while doing so, to wear a bandana over their mouths, or dark glasses and a hat, or even a gas mask or a Stephen Harper mask. In winter, a heavy scarf or balaclava is not a disguise, but a necessity. But what would happen during a legal protest involving hundreds or thousands of people if a few started scuffling with the police and an isolated riot occurred? The police could arbitrarily declare the legal protest to suddenly be an unlawful gathering, and under Bill C-309, immediately arrest every person wearing something that covers their face. Those arrested could be charged with an indictable offense that comes with a 6-month jail sentence or a $5,000 fine. How would police differentiate between a legitimate troublemaker in a mask and an innocent person swept up in the events? In the heat of the moment, would they even bother to try? Well, as we saw, as in the case with the G20 summit here in Toronto, there's now the infamous case of the kettling incident, which took place at the intersection of Queen and Spadina, where hundreds of people were cornered and kettled, and the police claim that they had reason to believe that some people in that crowd were taking part in the black bloc tactics the day before. Meanwhile, there's absolutely zero shred of evidence or any kind of proof that that was the case, but the police decided to ask questions later. They rounded everybody up, arrested them all, shipped them all down to Toronto, and it wasn't until later that all the charges were dropped and everyone was let go. But the damage was already done. They did what they achieved, and they shut down the lawful assembly. This is an odd sort of profiling. It would give police too much leeway to arrest innocent demonstrators. It is already a criminal offense to wear a disguise in the commission of a crime, but a crime has to have occurred for that law to come into play, and that's how this should be. So again, this has passed the House and Parliament, but has yet to pass the Senate and to become an actual law. So we're going to have to follow this one as it develops, and perhaps if this does end up being the case and this bill becomes an actual law, perhaps it will be time to organize a huge act of civil disobedience to show them that we're simply just not going to play by their rules. So we'll have to keep a close eye on this one as it develops. Again, this is potentially going to open up the door for the police to abuse this bill by declaring any peaceful assembly as unlawful, therefore arresting anyone who wants to conceal their identity. So just something I wanted to share with you guys today. And anyways, other than that, I will be tonight on Corbett Report Radio with James Corbett. So that'll be at 10 p.m. Eastern Time for an hour with James to discuss my new film, which is coming out early next week on Monday, November the 5th. So if you want to check that out, you can tune into his radio program tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern. And other than that, folks, that's all for today. I want to thank you for tuning in once again, and I'll see you all right back here tomorrow. Take care.